Welcome back to Showcase Pittsburgh on KDKA TV. I'm John Klein. Today, 5 tri-state businesses coming up. Robert Pierce from Robert Pierce and Associates. He'll help you with your legal needs. Dr. Nathan Lockery back again from Aspen Dental. He'll tell us about the latest in dentistry. Cookie Harris and Frank Petrosky from the New Image Hair Clinic will help make your hair makeover for thinning hair look a lot better. But right now, let's welcome Adam Musico from USA Insulation. Welcome to Showcase Pittsburgh, Adam.
Good morning, John.
Give us a little bit of history about USA Insulation. I know Mike was here before, but if somebody's watching for the first time, what's the history of your company?
Well, we've been in business since about 1985. We're a Pittsburgh-based company. We've been here in Pittsburgh for about 3 years. We're an injection foam company. What that means is we take insulation in a liquid form, put it into old houses, and get them up current on their energy efficiency.
I was watching on your website last night. There's a great video that shows exactly how all of this process happens. Quite interesting, where you drill into the side of the house and you fill the walls with foam. Tell us how that works.
Well, we could do a number of different insulation tactics. We could go in through brick, siding, vinyl, aluminum. We try to be as least invasive as possible. And we do inject the liquid foam. We want to fill up each cavity of the wall to get air sealing. If we can get air sealing, we can also get the resistance value.
What is it? What is air sealing? What do you mean?
Air sealing is if you've ever felt your plug outlet or your light switch, anywhere you feel air leaking into the house, or a baseboard, for example. If you could think of the old insulation, the fiberglass kind, it doesn't seal the perimeters of a house where you have leakage.
I have noticed that along the floor and along the baseboards in every house we've ever lived in, you're feeling the cold air in the winter along the baseboards.
Right.
So this would eliminate that.
Yes. Well, a lot of times in a house that's empty, that has no insulation at all, that's typically pre-1960, you'll see a lot of foam leak into the house a little bit to where we seal those areas. Now that's a good indication that we filled an area that was having a problem.
Once you've filled a wall or a cavity, is there any kind of residual effect with the electric wires in there, the plumbing? Does that affect that any way that, you know, down the road if you need to make some changes?
Actually, no. If you could picture what you ever see one of those fake cubes you stick a fake plant into, they kind of stick your thumb through them. Yeah. The material turns into something like that. It is a closed cell, so it's not going to sponge any water or anything like that. But what it'll do, it allows you to run new wire, do anything like that.
So you can go right through it if you need to.
Exactly.
What is the foam made of?
It's resin-based. It's resin with essentially a soapy water would be the catalyst. When it mixes together, it looks kind of like a shaving cream, goes in as a liquid, and it's going to go ahead and harden inside the wall and stay there permanently.
Is it expanding?
It does not expand. A lot of people think that it's the kind you get out of a can or something like that.
Right.
When the foam goes into a wall, it goes in based on gravity and air pressure. So it goes in, down, fills all your cracks and corners, and rises up.
What's the advantage of foam insulation over the insulation that I have in my house with the fiberglass or some of the other options?
Well, the other options that are out there, you would have fiberglass, cellulose, that's the loose newspaper kind. They're not permanent solutions. A lot of our jobs, probably 30 to 40% of our jobs, we're supplementing existing insulation. That means we go in over top of your old fiberglass, it's going to compress it, and it's going to push it down to about 1/4 inch, and we're going to go ahead and fill it in with a higher resistance value foam that also air seals.
So the fiberglass insulation that a lot of us have in our homes right now isn't permanent? It won't last the lifetime of our home?
That's true.
Really?
Yes. It doesn't, like I said,
it'll break down over time.
Exactly. It gets flat, it kind of falls off its paper, and it loses its thickness and springiness. You could kind of see it maybe on your attic. You'll see that thin fiberglass.
Yeah, it used to be this thick, now it's down to about that.
Right.
How about the spray insulation? I've seen other homes in the area, and I did it to a house I had probably 20 years ago, where it's the blow-in insulation.
Yes.
What is that made of, and that won't last either?
Blown-in insulation is good for an attic because you can pile it as high as you need to. If you put in blown-in, you can get the R value because you don't have a stud cavity hindering you. Now, if you put it into a wall in a 3 or 4 inch cavity, you just can't get enough value as a loose product. So when the product goes into the wall, it's in there very sparse. Over time, it settles, it deteriorates. If it gets wet, it is organic, it can mold, those kind of things. So we're very reluctant to have people put cellulose in their walls just because of how sparse it is.
You mentioned R value, and I'm guessing when anybody goes out and they're talking about any kind of insulation, they see R in a number. What specifically does that mean?
R value is resistance. It's very simple. Can hot air can cold air not penetrate through a resistance wall to get to the hot air?
The higher the R number, the better?
Yes, today's codes are about R20 for a wall and a roughly R40 for an attic.
And what does the spray foam insulation, where is that in
we are
the
5.4 per inch. So if you have 4 inches, you're looking at R21, something like that. The most batting fiberglass you fit in a wall is R13. So if you build a new one, you put in R13,
right.
You know, you're half of today's code roughly.
Most of your business, is it for pre-existing issues that have been with houses for 100 years, or are you doing new construction too?
It's not so much new construction for what we do. We are injection foam, typically pre-1980. That means your batting is old enough for us to fit our foam over top of.
Okay.
If you're pre-1960, we're going to fit a lot of foam in there, seal it as if there was never anything. You're going to go from 0 to 100 right away. If
somebody's watching right now and they have a house built before, what's the cutoff? 1960, chances are they don't have any insulation in the walls?
Chances are, yes. I've seen 1959 house here and there have one, but very rarely pre-1960. You could usually feel it. If you feel your wall and it's physically cold, you're more than likely empty.
Does this product break down over time?
The foam will be permanent. It is the only permanent solution in insulation. It's the only one that'll stay in there for the length of time of the house.
So this is something that you can do walls, you can put it in the attic, is that, or
no.
Is this just walls?
This is just a wall product. We picked a product to complement our foam for attics. What that is, it's called Climate Pro from Johns Manville. It looks kind of like cotton balls, minced up pieces of fiber wool. It's encapsulated so that it doesn't go airborne. If you kind of hit a piece of batting now, it'll send up little fiberglass particles. You know, nobody likes it to go airborne. So the product we picked for attics, it is loose blown. It's something like cellulose, okay, but it's a little cleaner. You know, so that's why we use it.
And I did see one thing that was interesting. It is fireproof. The foam is fireproof.
Yes.
It will not burn.
Yes, it's a 2-hour firewall before you could burn through it. So it's a nice safety feature for the house as well.
We're in the middle of winter. It's been snowing. It's been sleeting. It's been cold for what seems like forever.
Right.
But also, we need to think forward to the summer. Why would I want foam insulation in my house for the summer?
Well, a lot of reasons. If you take a brick house, for example, that gets baked by the sun all day long. It radiates into an empty wall cavity, and it's going to make your plaster or your drywall physically warm. So it's going to bake your house like a brick oven does. I'm sure you may have noticed that it'll be midnight and your AC is still trying to catch up. Well, that's because your walls are physically warm. If we get the resistance value between the brick and between your plaster or siding, whatever you may have, we're going to make it more like a cooler in the summer and a thermos in the winter.
I've noticed the back of our house faces west, and the walls on the western side of the house in the evening are still brutally hot, and that's why.
Right, exactly.
Maybe you can come out and show me how it works out to South Fayette.
I'd be glad to.
Tax credits, I know that was big last year.
Right.
Here we are already into the new year. Are we still looking at any tax credits or not?
We are. Last year's tax credit, I'm sure everybody's familiar with, was 30% of the product of an install like ours. So the new tax credit is 10% of your entire job. So it's up to $500.
Okay.
So if last year's tax credit you may have gotten $800, you're still going to get $500 this year.
Okay, and does that run this entire year, or is there a deadline?
Well, as of right now, it's going to run for the entire year, but the government can adjust that accordingly anytime.
If somebody comes out and does this project, is it a day project? Is it a weekend? Is it a week long? How long does the average job take?
It's one day. What we do is we run an assembly line around the house. You have your drillers, your foamers, and your patchers. We want to make the house look like we were never there physically. We want to put it back together.
But you'll have to drill into the side of the house. So depending on what the house is wrapped in, whether it's vinyl or
like I said, a couple different applications. We go through mortar joints. We don't want to cut out bricks and be invasive. Siding, we remove a sheet of siding. We drill underneath. And then we put your siding back on and make it look like we were never there.
If somebody has a house that is brick, I saw on your website in the video, there's a cavity between the bricks and maybe more bricks inside or the block.
Right.
Can you deal with that?
Sure. We call that a seam house. What that means is if you feel your wall and it feels rock hard, you are likely plaster over brick.
Is that fairly common in Pittsburgh?
Very common. A lot of places have it, like Squirrel Hill, Shadyside, Crafton, Carnegie. A lot of the places where you see these bigger 3-story brick houses, they don't think anything can be done. We can fill the seam between the brick and the brick or the brick and the block, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen brick and terracotta tile as well.
Big reduction in my energy bills?
Oh yeah, well the seam house, for example, you would think if I'm only getting an inch or two of foam, what is that actually going to do for me? Well, we're eliminating the wind tunnel and making it so your plaster's now whatever temperature your thermostat tells it to be. So a house like that can cut their bills in half.
Wow.
Our average savings is about 40%, assuming you're pre-1960 and empty.
Substantial.
Right, and
Substantial.
you might see 30 to 40% on a house where we're supplementing.
Adam, before we wrap today, tell everybody about the special that you've created.
Well, we actually did one of these last month as well. We put together a special for a conventional attic. What we do is give you a free attic with installation of the wall insulation. It was very popular through January, so we went ahead and extended it through February till the end of the month.
Adam can save you a lot of money. If you need more information about USA Insulation, call them 412-492-7283 or log on to usainsulation.net. If you would like to advertise your products or services here on our show, call us at 412-575-2400 or email us at showcase@kdka.com. Up next, Robert Pierce of Robert Pierce and Associates. That's next when Showcase Pittsburgh continues.